Albert, thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure to have the conversation.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here again, under a different context, but it's always very fun to be in this space.
Very nice. I'm very happy, and it's nice to have you in Berlin as well. You spent a lot of time in Miami. You grew up there, like spent a lot of time. And one of the things I was interested in is to for people who are not familiar with the scene in Miami or electronic music, or broadly speaking with the city. Can you tell us a bit more how the city looks like living for people who live there,
Yeah.
and related to that, what is the club scene, particularly techno, if you want?
Yeah, so Miami's very interesting. Miami's in the United States, geographically speaking, right? It's within the boundaries. It is in the country of the United States. But culturally, it's actually in the Spanish Caribbean. So I'm going to speak very generally because I don't have the statistics, but my guess is about 70% of people in Miami are native Spanish speakers, myself included. And many of us tend to be either from family from Central America or Latin America, South America, whatever, right? Spanish speaking or Portuguese speaking Brazil. And yeah, so that's Miami. That's the fabric of Miami is actually that. It's more deeply rooted in Spanish Caribbean. So you have a lot of influence of the rhythms of Latin America. You have Afro-Cuban rhythms. You have a way broader and wider way of thinking of music. It's not like your typical academic Western art music. It's very different, and it's and yeah. So people are a lot more open-minded with this sort of thing. It's very interesting. And when you spend a lot of time with Latin Americans or people from the Caribbean, everybody has some kind of connection to music. It's a part of life. And they've all been involved in some kind of musical, cultural thing. Even if they don't identify as a musician, they've all been a part of something. So it's very different. There's a lot more participation. And then it even goes into the culture where dancing is the norm. Knowing different types of dances and different types of songs are the norm. Kids dance with their moms and their parents from when they're a young age. It's a very different culture. Yeah. And there's a lot less encapsulation. So people that maybe see each other during the day will also see each other during the night, and they'll invite each other over for meals. So people work together, they dance together, they listen to music together. So very different from the rest of the US or a lot of other cultures. So that's a beautiful thing about Miami. That's built in, that warmth. Yeah. And you'll meet somebody at a party or something, and they'll be like, hey, we should hang out sometime. And they mean it. It's not like, I don't know, New York or LA where people will be like, we should hang out sometime. They actually mean it. It's and they'll invite you over, and then you'll meet like their grandmother and their nephews, and you'll meet all these people at a barbecue.
Right. Warm culture, like warm.
Yeah, it's a very warm culture. So I think that's important to know because that informs everything else. You asked about like techno music specifics.
Just a quick word before we go back to the interview. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the podcast. I'm Joseph, and this is the HoS Sound Studio. If you enjoy this content, please consider liking and commenting on this very episode, and also following us on the platform where you listen to or you watch the podcast, but also follow us on social media. If you have suggestions of guests that you really would like us to interview, see the link in the description. There's a form where you can submit suggestions for guests, and also if you have questions for them. Once again, thanks so much for watching and listening to the podcast. We love what we do. I hope to see you soon on a dance floor.
Miami has had a lot of ups and downs with music over the years, just because we're a place made up of a lot of refugees. Like, for example, my mom's from Cuba, and she came to Miami when she was about 18 or 19, not speaking English. She speaks English today, but it's a lot of people that are usually uprooted from somewhere else. They come. Miami's a beautiful place because you can wear all the flags you want. Right. So you can be in Miami and be Colombian, you can be Cuban, you can be whatever you are. Everybody embraces each other's identity. We all learn from each other. It's very cool in that way. But what that also means is everything's kind of splintered. So when you go to parties and stuff, you have so much coverage in music. So the norm is very chaotic. And then you've also got tourist culture, because Miami's a beautiful, gorgeous place. Tourists love it. It's exciting. It's fun. So all of this movement makes it so that immediacy is preferred versus resistance. Resistance being like music that you kind of got to close your eyes and listen to and be like, oh man, I understand this. I love this. So there's only a few places in Miami where you can really go listen to techno or enjoy it. And it's a tough place for techno, to be honest. But there are moments where you see like a lot of people throwing parties. Some of them are like, you know, ad hoc warehouse things. Some of them are in proper clubs. And there was a nice buildup of that before the pandemic. We had some stuff during the pandemic because Miami was crazy and things were happening during the pandemic. And then after the pandemic, you still see some of this happening, but it's nothing like in the United States if you compare it to like New York or something.
Yeah. So in that context of how Miami is for an artist that makes electronic music like yourself,
Yeah.
how do you feel, where do you get support and where do you struggle?
That's funny. Yeah, so the support making electronic music in Miami, honestly, it for probably a lot of people in a lot of cities is on the internet, because that's where you're going to find music and interact with other people. I grew up in Miami playing in rock bands and that sort of thing. So I also went to school for music, so I have a lot of music mates, I guess I could call them, like friends that are also musicians. So that helps. But the reality is, specifically for electronic music, it's quite a lonely endeavor in Miami, honestly. Miami's very amazing with world music and Latin music and rock en español and other things. But as far as like the kind of music I make, or the sort of a lot of the music I enjoy, and I listen to things that are not just techno, of course. We all listen to all kinds of music, right? But for the kind of things that I'm like more obsessive over, there's not that much going on in Miami. So
yeah, and it's, I'm curious even more, for example, because you seem to be connected with a lot of the EBM. Would you call it EBM? New wave, techno?
I call it EBM-ish, but yeah,
EBM-ish.
EBM-ish because there's like one thread that goes through all of it, but there's like a lot of latitude there. So yeah, but yeah, totally, I got it.
EBM-ish and techno, let's say, that's the kind of broader realm, for lack of a specific definition.
Yeah, sure.
And what led you to that point? Like you grew up influenced by Latin music, world music, rock, that's what you were into. And then eventually you get to kind of close to the music you produce today and in the last couple of years. What led you to get closer to this music?
Yeah, so I love a lot of, I'd have to think about like super specifics, but generally speaking, I love a lot of like 80s post-punk music and a lot of kind of like interesting but simple minimal instrumentation music from the 80s, like rock bands and post-punk type bands. And I think there's like a really nice balance of things there that I find in techno, as strange as that might sound. It's not like a very straight line, but there is a line there that connects these things for me. So yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of simple, pure, minimal rock music that I feel values creativity and concept way more than technical virtuosity. Even though I've spent almost my entire life playing music, I don't feel like I'm a super strong performer, or I'm like I don't think anyone's gonna hire me to play guitar or piano on their song. You know,
the skills.
Yeah, I don't have those chops or whatever. Nobody's gonna hire me to do that. That's okay. But I love writing music and performing music and DJing and all this other stuff. Everything that has to do with music. Yeah, so I think we've all been at a techno night and you see a lot of people wearing heavy metal shirts.
Yes.
I think there is some link. And over the years, I have met amazing people in bands that I like. And, you know, maybe I'll hang out with them and get to know them or something. and I'll be like, oh, I really love your music, whatever. And then they'll be like, oh, I wish I could make techno. That's like, blah, blah, that's what I really love. But like, I'm in this world of whatever. And it's funny because have been over the years artists that dip their toes into techno. It feels kind of like the final boss for a lot of people that are very into music.
They landed into techno.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Something about all these different paths lead there. And yeah, like EBM-ish music. I feel like it shares a lot of the family tree with a lot of other musics and non-music related arts and cultural stuff we like. And I think one of the things that's really nice about some types of rock that I like, or some types of EBM or techno or whatever, they all kind of have a timeless quality. And if you close your eyes, they can kind of take you somewhere, and I like that. But yeah, they all take you like somewhere not that different. I don't know. I don't know why, but something about a heavy metal show has something in common with a techno night. I'm not exactly sure how to articulate it, but there is some crossover there. I don't know. There's like some space they share. I don't know why.
Does it resonate if I say, like, I mean, it's something about feelings and emotions that the two can have in common? It can be anger, nostalgia, melancholia.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, right, because that's very interesting. Yeah, melancholy, nostalgia, whatever, all that. It's interesting because if you go into one extreme of like, I don't know, let's say unrequited love, or what's like the cheap version of nostalgia? Sentimentality, right? Or like, like if you listen to like the wrong cheesy 90s rock song, it's going to be like, ooh, boo, hoo, hoo, she doesn't love me. Like, I don't know, something about that message is not broad and universal enough to me, and it doesn't really strike like a universal emotion.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other music that I love that has a very, I think, visceral and emotional without distraction is the thing we like about a lot of this stuff. Like, if you go to a specific heavy metal show or a specific techno show, you're in front of the speakers, air is moving, you're very present, there's emotion, and there's a bit of a dialogue where there's whatever energy the crowd is giving the performer, there's a bit of a tug and pull, and there's emotion there. There's other types of music that are more, I'm not in the business of saying what music's cool or not, so I don't really know, but there's music that I consider more decorative, that like I don't emotionally connect with. I'll be like, oh, that's nice, that's cool. The hi-hat sound is cool, I guess. Oh, that's
it's
nice.
not visceral. It's not.
But I don't.
It doesn't communicate the same.
Yeah, I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll be there. I am a receiver of the music, but I'm not giving anything back. The show is done. I don't think about it the next day.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does, in this sphere of influences that you had, like growing up, Miami, rock, and potentially like also other type of music, how does that, in all of this, like how does Berlin fit in? Because you seem to always have been connected with Berlin.
Yeah.
From releasing on Persephonic Sirens, Ancient Methods label, but also like collaborating with Blush Response, and like in a way like having a kind of connections to the internet, but also coming to Berlin with the scene in Berlin. How did that come into your life?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I was growing up with music on the internet, downloading a bunch of music on like IRC or whatever, and like all these different like message boards, and finding music and discovering music from a very young age, and downloading weird softwares to like make drum loops on my like super bad computer and whatever as a kid. There was, back then for me, I'm not that old, but whatever, or maybe I wasn't interested in the magazines or MTV or whatever, but I was listening to a lot of music. And I was so obsessed with the music, I wasn't curious about the lore yet. So I wasn't like looking up, like I wasn't like, ooh, like where are they from and all that. But then as I continued to get older and I got more into music and I started to intellectualize it more and talk about it with other people, I started to realize like, oh, there's certain eras and cities and places, and I started to see patterns like, oh, that's interesting. I think the reason geography plays a huge part is because we live in a political world. Things affect us.
Yeah.
The weather affects us. You've got Seattle, you've got Berlin, you've got London, whatever, I guess. And there's all these factors, right? And even today, if you go to Germany or you go to France, they've been pretty close geographically for a long time. But the reality is French people are still very French. They're still speaking French.
Yeah.
German people are very German. They're speaking German. So like geography does matter a lot, right? Even with the internet and everything. So yeah, over the years, I started to notice I was drawn to a lot of music that is either native to Berlin or is being made by artists that are drawn to Berlin.
Yeah.
And through listening to a lot of this music over the years, I realized Berlin is kind of like its own character in a weird way. Like cities sometimes have their own narrative and they're like a character in the story.
Yeah.
And when I first started coming to Berlin, I wasn't surprised by anything. I felt like, oh yeah, this is what I expect.
Makes
Same
sense.
thing like the very first time I ever went to Paris.
Yeah.
Like there was zero surprise because you've seen enough movies and you've seen enough things. You're like, oh yeah, there's no surprise, right?
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Or maybe the same way for a European, the first time they go to New York, they're not really surprised, I'm guessing, because so much TV and stuff. So yeah, that Berlin I feel very at home in Berlin, like ridiculously at home. And everything feels strangely familiar, which is the only other city I've lived in for a long time, besides Berlin or Miami, is Los Angeles. I lived there for years, and I never really felt at home. I always felt like I was living in a hotel in some sense.
Yeah. Because I would have expected, in a way, like Los Angeles to be closer in culture to Miami than Berlin to Miami. But maybe because, again, you knew Berlin's from its influence into the music you like, then you felt like, oh, I'm kind of coming to a place that I kind of know, I feel drawn to. Does it feel like
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, totally. It's crazy. I'm guessing the music a lot of us love that we listen to that's rooted in Berlin in some way. I guess it's reflective of the place. And like, yeah, there's like something there where it's like two sides of the same thing. And it makes sense. If you like the music, you like the city, you like the people. People here are kind of amazing, I feel. I really enjoy people here a lot. But yeah.
How is the city now influencing your creative practice in terms of music creation?
Oh, for me, it's like, so for example, so in my case, I speak 3 languages. I speak Spanish, English, and French, but I've never lived in a Francophone country, so I'm nowhere near being a native speaker. I understand everything, but can I speak it? I'm not that great at speaking French, right? So something about being here, immersed in whatever the culture of Berlin is, which it is very interesting and it attracts a lot of artists for a reason, is the truth. I feel it's, risking the cliche. It is inspiring in a lot of ways because you just have so much serendipity and you get to, there's so much music to go hear and see. And at these events, you can talk to people and you absorb so much. It's like a full immersive experience in improving your pronunciation in the language of techno and other music we like. So yeah, it's nice being immersed here. It's like being from Miami. I feel like I learned, a language from a book. Been studying it for so long. Now I get to move to the city and now I'm speaking the language every day. It's kind of exciting. It's weird because it's not just a language or music or anything. It's like a full culture. So like Berlin has its own idioms, its own norms, its own things. It's weird. Yeah, it's cool.
I super interesting analogy with language, right? Having being so close to the culture of something that's influenced the music you enjoy, it actually give you a different breadth or like depth in terms of like the language you're learning, the vocabulary. Yeah,
and getting to use it because you're like closer to the dialogue. There's a lot of energy here. And people are very intense about music here.
Yeah.
Where in the United States, I don't know if it's just 2024 or what, there's a lot less identity, generally speaking, when you meet people and deal with people. People don't feel like strong identity with the music they listen to. They just don't. But here, music has a lot of identity. And by the way, people are deep and wide here. Like, they will listen to a lot of different types of music, and they're very open-minded. But like, it really has a lot to do with their identity. It's a big part of who people are here.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think it's true. A lot of people like eventually end up identifying themselves with a specific kind of music, clubs they go to or they don't go to. Yeah, that also, yeah. And for your specific creative practice, are there things you do to make sure that you are creative, that you can spend quality time in the studio, or things you don't do? For example, you stay away from.
Yeah, so being creative and finding a rhythm to create output is quite difficult. Me personally, I'm a creature of routine and habit, so I kind of need a routine to feel creative. That's me personally, and yeah. So there's also the other layer where being in an amazing place like Berlin and being here for a bit now. Like, I'm still excited and I'm experiencing things and I'm meeting up with a lot of really cool people. So my routine is still a little chaotic right now. So, and then also I've been helping something that I don't really do very much of anymore, but I used to also work as a mix engineer and record producer for other artists and other bands, mostly under the context of like rock music a long time ago. But I still do occasionally for some friends and things, I'll mix their records or do other things or collaborate with them in other ways to help them with their vision. And so lately it's been really exciting because I've been able to just, for the first time in a while, especially for the first time since, I think this is the first time since, because in my case, same thing that happened to tons of people. I had shows lined up and all these things going on for the period that became COVID. And then it was very disruptive, obviously. And just now is the time that I'm really getting focused 100% just into my own music, my own stuff, finding my creative space, listening to music, understanding what's going on in the landscape, really focusing on what I think is good, what I think I need to be saying. Like, I don't try to release a lot. I don't have an obsession with releasing all the time. I know that that's a massive pressure, obviously, because it's scary not to release every week because you can fall out of the dialogue. But for me, it's very important that I write something, I sit on it, I look at it, I revisit it, and then I get to ask myself the question after, like, I've worked really hard on it, like, is this actually good? And sometimes I'm like, it's not that good. And then I write new stuff, and that's okay. So like, yeah, but all of this, I have to be in a routine.
Right.
And I'm working to get into the routine. And my routine's very boring. It has to be very boring because the creativity thing is very intense. And like, I have to be in front of a computer with some stuff for like 6, 8, 10 hours to really get into flow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like, it's weird, but it's tough to get there. Yeah.
It's tough. And what's the tough part is for you kind of switching from rest of your life to music.
Yeah.
So it takes you time.
Absolutely. For everybody. I mean, anything can be a distraction, whether someone's working or has to commute or has to go see family once a week, or like all these little things. They're also important because you can't just be in like a closet or a basement in front of Ableton Live all day or something, like hitting drum pads, because that you're not going to make amazing things that way either. I think. So yeah, it's interesting because you also need that balance. I had a friend years ago, another music producer, and he's like, man, sometimes you just got to take your cat to the vet. And that's like his like thing of like, because he loves his cats, and sometimes he tries to lock himself up for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. He's like, I'm not going anywhere until I finish these 4 tracks. But then he's like, dude, I got to go take care of my cat. I need to go outside.
Yeah.
And you need that break sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. Do you tend to plan your weeks, or let's say, do you have a set schedule in a week worth of time?
The honest truth is I've never been much of a planner. I do, any commitment I make, I do stick to. And I'm the kind of guy that'll show up early or whatever. But I'm never super proactive about planning, because usually in my case, depending on where I'm living or what's going on, a lot of my time is mostly about trying to protect and preserve my time. So like, I think one of the biggest problems maybe for all of us, especially in today's world with the way we work, live, breathe, go out, plan our nights, everything, is just like saying no and like protecting and preserving our time. That's like easily the hardest thing, which is brutal because it's like a matter of triage where like, you're like, I got to do all these things. I feel connected to all these people. I have to work. I have to do this. I have to go buy coffee. Otherwise I won't have coffee tomorrow. You know, like you think about all these things, and then you really have to prioritize, and it can be overwhelming. Because it's like a lot, right?
How do you manage, or how do you avoid getting overwhelmed from all of this? Because you have also your own startup that you're working on, which is demanding on your time. You have commitments to that. You have relationships. You have your creative art. And you need to live. You need to, as you said, like, you know, run errands, take care of the house. All these things fit into the week, right? How do you manage this stress that can come from that, or the overwhelm?
Yeah. So I think the thing that helps me personally is finding some kind of routine. Trying to go to sleep at the same time every day, trying to wake up at the same time every day. When I do enter flow and it's like a certain time and I realize like, hey, if I go to sleep right now, I get a good night's rest, I wake up tomorrow, it will still be there. I will be strong enough to keep going, right? Because chasing flow is what it's about. And I think having a routine can help a lot. And then it's tough, but finding a way to break small loops, you know, whether it's checking messages or checking your email, like breaking these loops and trying to allocate time to do things. And it can be very freeing, because it's very tough though. It's very tough, you know, because for example, earlier today, I was sitting down, I was trying to do some stuff in the morning to get some productivity out of the day with music related things. By the way, sometimes it's about, hey, I don't feel creative today, but I'm going to sit here for 2 hours and not do anything else and organize like my drum samples. And sometimes I'll find a sample that I'm like, this is exciting. And then all of a sudden I'm making a track. But sometimes it's just about like sitting down and allocating that time. But yeah, like today, it was very hard for me to focus because I was waiting for DHL. And I don't know if you know about DHL in Germany.
I know, yeah. Enough.
Yeah, they don't like...
Fucking hell. What's wrong?
I don't know. There's something wrong with the system. Yeah, so like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, oh my God, if I don't react enough, if I'm not looking at the phone, if I'm not checking the thing, you know, like what if I miss it? This is like the 3rd time they're trying to deliver it. I might miss it. Like, I don't want to miss it. And then, you know, so like, metaphorically speaking, I have like, you know, like one of my ears focused on this. And I'm like, man, like, so it's just like, yeah. So like in life, we've got these things all day. And now with all the devices, but yeah, the advice I would give a good friend, I'd be like, hey man, try to only do one thing at a time. If you kill multitasking, all of a sudden everything becomes way better. And the moments of the most...
If you don't do multitasking.
Yeah, multitasking.
Yeah.
I think multitasking might be a scam.
I think it's a scam. You know, I think the system we are in, like, because we all chase dopamine to some degree, some people less, some people more, we get a better short-term incentive from trying to do multiple small superficial stuff from which we get dopamine than focusing on something that doesn't, like, you know, organizing your kick samples or drum samples. Like, you're not gonna be very happy for the next 10 minutes, or half an hour.
Yeah.
And maybe you get inspiration, and maybe that leads to a good track that kind of like gives you the satisfaction in a month time, in a year time, instead of getting the gratification from the shitty stuff, right?
And it's tough. I mean, that even goes into, I think about it a lot in music composition. I had a professor that was obsessed with this concept of immediacy and resistance, or Twinkies versus steak, or maybe candy bars versus bananas, where like, the candy bar, you give it to any person in the world that, and you give them the candy bar, they're probably going to like it. It's going to be very immediate, lots of sugar. It's almost like a sugar cube at that point, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing that's really going to make us happy and make us feel well and not feel nauseous after, and that you can't really eat too much of because you will feel better, generally speaking, is like, I don't know, say a banana. And the banana, you have to open it. It has layers. You have to make sure it's ripe.
Yeah.
And like, but usually as much as you think you kind of want the candy bar, you really like the banana is usually a better choice. And but yeah, music's like that, where I'm from Miami. So if you go to an ordinary night, you're usually going to have something more oriented towards a tourist that goes out twice a year and is trying to have like the ultimate night of their life because they're in Miami. So you'll have this really intense, crazy music. A lot of it might even be top 40 radio, like what's on the radio or something. And it's so intense, and everything is like so elevated with tons of fat, sugar, oil, tons of oil, butter. Like it's all in there. Like it's all in there.
Everything short term.
Yeah. But like, how many donuts are we going to eat? At some point, we got to have nutrition and nourishment. And it's interesting because over the years when I've taken people to like techno nights or whatever that are not normally into this kind of music, they'll be like, after like 2 hours, like I kind of started to understand, like, I think I'll go again. But like, it's always kind of like, you're like showing somebody like a really amazing dish of food for the first time they've never tried. Yeah. And they've only been eating Twinkies, maybe. And then they're like, I like this. This is kind of good.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
why not try more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like also for you, like a way to do it is that to actually, in the short term, find a way to go for the banana. Ignore the
try. It's hard, right?
Super hard. Yeah. But I think while you're peeling the banana, you start tasting it. Like actually you develop some taste for that. You start liking it. Yeah. Yeah.
We got it. The more bananas we eat, the better. I mean, and this informs everything. Like, for example, like talking about immediacy versus resistance. So like the more superficial something is, the more artificial something is, the more immediate it becomes. So like, for example, I'll use something more concrete in music. So for example, in popular music, in country music, I don't know, think Cher with auto-tune. When auto-tune first started to enter, at first it was very exciting, sounded interesting. We hear the human voice and singing all the time from a small child, and now you're hearing this like really artificial version of singing with the auto-tune, and you're like, so like it really grabs your ear.
Yeah.
But then it enters a cycle. People consume it. It's on every song on the radio for 5 or 6 years. Then it goes into country music. Then it goes into hip hop. Then it goes into this. Then it goes. And then at one point, everybody's like, guys, it's enough already. This is done. Yeah. We are done. I don't feel well. It's irritating me now. What's the new exciting weird thing? And then you have the new artificial thing. And that's why a lot of times you'll have the original song and you'll have the remix. The remix has a lot of extra perk, trap drums, effects, phaser. Like it's got all the artificial crazy stuff. It's hype, energy. Yeah. It gets played in the club maybe a little bit more, but then 10 years pass and maybe they don't listen to the remix anymore. By the way, sometimes remixes are better than the original, obviously. But usually they're not going to listen to the remix anymore because it was kind of for commercial reasons. And now you're listening more to the original song. So it's like you go back to the banana. Yeah. It's like it's it's something very tough that we have to like, it's a struggle.
Yeah, balance. And in your life for the past couple of years, running the startup and music and everything else, like, has there been like a very tough moment where you thought for a second, oh shit, how am I gonna survive this and make it? Because too many things were coming your way and you were overwhelmed.
Yeah, so the startup X Lab, what we make is our only real product is a video game that I started that was going to be the counterpart to a music release I was working on at the time. And then my creative energy kind of like took over this thing and then turned it into a multiplayer social video game and like all this crazy stuff in VR. And yeah, I think the times where it felt very intense was when because video games are very technical and they also have a lot of art in them. It's software with art, with music. It's like a movie in a weird way where like you've got, visual, you've got sound, you've got everything. So once the entire band, if you will, came together for the team that works on the video game, came together and everything really started working, it was great. But there was like this long arc of 2 or 3 years where I had to put a lot of creative energy and make a lot of commitments and a lot of decisions into the game for it to be cohesive and make sense together. Because when you make a video game, it's a bit like making a movie where, you maybe have a sound designer, you have a person that makes the worlds, the levels, the architects, if you will. You have people that have to make the characters, and you have to kind of find a way to glue it all together so it makes sense and it's cohesive. Otherwise, it won't make sense. Yeah. So then, since I was the person that started it, then everybody's looking at me like,
what the fuck should we do?
Yeah, what should we do? But then the funny thing is, a lot of the people that that ultimately came together to make this video game, they're all brilliant. Yeah. So it's just like, but they still are like, so people bring you like 5 amazing options and then they're like, we got to pick one. Yeah. So it was never hard, but it was stressful just because of like so much optionality. And then there's also battle of the creatives where maybe everybody has amazing ideas, but then they want their ideas to win. So like, just again, a little bit like making a movie where maybe making a movie is some years of extreme intensity. You film it and then it comes out. So I had that period of production with the video game. Things are way more stable now. We have our audience. Like, I feel a lot more happy, and it's so clear everything that has to be done in the video game for what's happening now that nothing is stressful. It's like we just do the work now. So
you
it's
execute
nice.
it.
Yeah.
You find a way also to have enough time and energy actually for music, for your relationship, for the rest of your life. Yeah,
and actually that also goes back to music because so in music today I already have, I guess it happens when you've been doing anything long enough. I've been making music basically since I was 10 or something, and I've been making video games for the last about 10 years. So when you've been doing something long enough, it's kind of like starting a new job. The first 6 months, you kind of learn what's going on. 2 years in, you're kind of useful. After 5 years, I hope you know what you're doing. It should be, and then you eventually reach a point where you're only working maybe at 20% of your capacity. And then there's moments where you really have to use your mind a lot and plan. And there's moments of great intensity. Yeah. But generally speaking, if you're really good at what you're doing, I think you should only be at about 20% of your capacity as your baseline
to manage, yeah, of course.
Yeah, because if you're always at 100%, you're like and then to punctuate that, so for music, I have a very strong sense of my music. Like, I have my own flow, I have my own sonic palette, I have my sounds. I've spent a lot of time making a lot of sounds from scratch. And I have let's say my 20 tricks or something that I sit down with certain things that I always go back to. And with that, I have so many permutations and so much possibility within those constraints that for me, making music is very effortless. The part that's hard is making the music and then really looking back at it and really having to decide, is this good or not?
Right.
Should this be released or not? Do I care about this enough? Because I'm so against creating noise. Like, I don't want to make music that I will go back to later and be like, whatever.
I wish I didn't release it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a strange thing to say, because I think all music deserves to be heard, but we only have so much time. So I also, it's hard. And a lot of energy and spirit and soul goes behind a release, whether it's all the energy that has to be put into a release from a label, or the people that run a label, or the artist has to maybe, go on tour to support the release. Like, there's a lot that goes behind any release. So you really, I'm maybe a little overly precious with it, which is something I'm working on. I'm going to be releasing more now, but yeah.
Yeah, got it. And do you have like a sounding board that is external from yourself to actually judge, is this music good enough?
Ooh, of course. One of the most exciting moments when any of us ever finish a track, I hope it's exciting for people, you finish it and you get to listen to it with someone else in the room or show it to them. All of a sudden, so many things become obvious. I don't know why, right? The second you finish a track and you show it to someone else, like they might tell you like, oh, the hi-hat pattern's really interesting or whatever. Like, they might have compliments and whatever, but no matter what they say, you know what they think. And then you realize like,
Something's missing.
Yeah. Like, they don't even need to speak. You already know. Or the same way, if you're DJing and, and maybe you're lucky enough to have an early set or something, or you share it with a friend and then they play it during sound check in an empty club and you get to hear it, you already know. Like, everything becomes super obvious. Yeah, so like playing it in an empty club to hear like where if it's really working or not, or showing it to a friend, it starts to become really obvious for some reason.
Yeah, so interesting this thing, because in the end, do you trust that judgment? Because I also find that in that moment, sometimes we can get very susceptible to interpretation of feedback. So the person might just be listening and you think, oh, maybe this track sucks, because they're not saying anything, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just you are overreacting to
of course
the lack of response, and then you think, oh, this track sucks.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful with that as well. I mean, the reality is, if you don't feel a little bit of that, you're not really being vulnerable, and you're not really trying to do anything that different. Yeah. Because if it's like that safe, where you're like, nothing to be embarrassed about, it's great, no one's going to be offended by that music, like, it's you do have to be a little bit vulnerable and make something that there's at least a question mark somewhere in there where it's like, does this make sense? Because I've had music, and I'm sure a lot of people, like, where I've released that you might not think that much of it, or you might be like, I think this is good, and then people connect with it, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess it is good. But you never really know until later is part of the story, right?
For sure. And I wanted to ask you something about this, which is there any of your tracks that you ended up releasing, and when before release you thought, I don't even like this track, I don't know if it's gonna work, and then the response was overwhelming or like exceedingly positive, and you were surprised by that?
For me to get to release, I mean, when I was much younger and I was in rock bands, because of the way that like the more like quote unquote pop or rock world works, it kind of demands a certain release schedule, which understandably dance music has moved more and more into this territory to try to bolster the machinery of the industry so that it can be more sustainable. It makes sense. I get it. It's not a bad thing. It's okay. But yeah, like, but the framework of like pop and rock music is a lot more strict. You're expected to operate on a certain cadence and rhythm and like release a certain amount over a certain amount of time. So when I was playing rock music, like, it's like, okay, we're going into the studio, we're going to do these songs. You had to have the thing. It was like a product. It had to be. And sometimes it was better than other times. And sometimes you were just hoping it'd get buried because like, you're not excited about it. Right. for me with techno music, I try to be very careful about what I release, and I hold myself to a certain standard that's maybe like silly or something. So no, I can't say that I've ever regretted anything that I've released with electronic music as Aoud, as me, but I have been very surprised by how people connect with the music and the associations they make and like where it fits in their mental model and it's amazing. And I've learned so much about my own music by meeting people and them telling me about my music, and I'm like, and
holy shit,
yeah, like they're like really weird, but I met some guy maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and he's like, oh, your song, I think SC Mark II, he's like, I can tell that you listened to a lot of Queens of the Stone Age, this album and this and that, and that you also like this. And I was like,
it true?
And I was like, brother, you're right. This is crazy. Really? I'm like, you're a sicko, but you're right. Wow. And it's funny because there's a Smiths lyric from the song Cemetery Gates. And he says, there's always someone with a big nose somewhere that knows. And it's funny, but there is always somebody, there is some music nerd somewhere that knows exactly what you're doing, where you got the influences from, what's going on. This guy you knew.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Yeah.
Did you meet this person randomly, or they reached out to you to say, oh, that's what I felt with your music?
I met them at an event in New York, and they were like, I know who you are, and I love your music. And I bet that, and then he started talking about music, and he felt, because the same way we feel when we meet someone that we love their music, you feel like you kind of know them in a way.
Yeah.
And he felt like we had something in common, and he wasn't wrong.
It was
because he knew,
right.
So music is a form of communication, like talking about something ridiculous, but not that long ago, I was talking to someone and I was like, oh yeah, I got to record a podcast or whatever. They're in the fine art world. They're not in the techno world. And they're like, oh, podcast, whatever. And I was like, oh no. And then I had to explain like, oh no, well, podcast and techno is like the dialogue is the music.
Yeah.
And this and that. And they were like, huh, that's actually really interesting. And I was like, it's kind of weird actually, but yes.
yeah. There's a different type of connotation or meaning to the word. Yeah. What's the background story of SE MK2?
Yeah, that track actually, very funny. So like background in which sense, right? Like the actual. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
What inspired the track?
Yeah.
And how did that happen to arrive to Michael? I read a bit about in another interview.
Oh,
the
cool.
Story.
Okay.
How did that got released eventually?
Yeah, actually, so now I recall quite well. So there's two things that happened there that were fantastic impetus, a bit of the serendipity of the thing. One is, one of my best friends who goes by M7, another techno musician, he also from Miami. He came over one day, and he's also very good friends with me and Blush Response as well, coincidentally. So he comes over one day and he's like, hey man, I've been listening to this and this and that, and he shows me a bunch of music, and he's like, he's like, I'm not trying to copy this, but like I want to get an idea, like I don't know, show me, like give me some other ideas, like I need to break out of my loop, like show me other ideas on like different kick patterns or kicks or whatever. So I made from scratch the kick for that ended up on SC Mark II on that whole release with Persephonic Sirens. And what happens is I make it, and then I'm like, this is kind of good actually. You know what? So he like leaves, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a track.
So interesting.
Yeah, so funny. So I was showing my friend something. And by the way, he's a great friend to be showing stuff to because he's like an insanely brilliant musician. But yeah, so it's funny because the way he thinks, because he's more of a jazzy mind, even though he makes techno, he played saxophone and jazz guitar most of his life. So the way he thinks about music, it's more about like improvisation and real-time creativity and creation. So it's like very chaotic and different than the way I think. Yeah. Where like I sit down to write. So like I'm much more linear in a sense.
Arrangement kind of thinking,
But anyway, so like it's funny because your ego like is very different. When you're like teaching someone or telling a story, you're not thinking about yourself, so everything just flows. It's like, you want to learn how to make eggs, you do this, you do that, you're not trying to make the perfect eggs, but then you make it, and then you're like, hey, this is really good, I just learned something. So anyway, so I made it sounds ridiculous, but I made the kick sound, and I was like, I like this. It sounds completely silly, right? But like, if you have a good kick, things can happen. So then I make the kick sound, and then I decide like on my palette of sounds, and specifically on that release, pretty much almost everything is pretty much custom, like to a ridiculous degree that doesn't actually make sense. Like it doesn't mean anything about it or about the quality of it or anything, but I created all these sounds. But making that release, I've created like such a palette of sounds now from that release and other things I've worked on over the years. So yeah, I sat down and then I made 3 tracks basically, and it's that. And then the way that Michael got it was also M7, because he's like, dude, this is really good, but it's your friend, so you're like, whatever. And then he's like, no, dude, this is good. And then he sent it to 3 different people, and Michael Ancient Methods was one of them. And then he responded, and then
pretty cool.
And the release ended up coming out. But yeah, it was very interesting because, I mean, I don't think there's any surprise there, like if you're someone that's ever met him or listened to his music. But yeah, Ancient Methods, like he actually listens to the music, and it was very interesting because when he put out the release, I don't think he knew my name until like the last second. And he didn't know what I looked like or where I was from. It's like kind of funny. You know, he's a human that's so focused on the music. Yeah. It's like the person is like invisible. It doesn't even matter. It's like, it's really about the music, and it's kind of a beautiful thing. And that's how I listen to music as well. A lot of times I don't learn until many years later what an artist looks like.
Yeah. Which I think is beautiful, because the beauty of that is it allows you to focus on the art without preconception of what the art, where it comes from, whether you like it or not. Like it's kind of a blank canvas, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah, because humans were very easy to influence, for better or worse. Sometimes a lot of times for good. But, you know, it's the same way that I'll be influenced the truth is, usually when I meet someone and I like them and I hear their music, I actually tend to like it, is the funny thing. Yeah, exactly. But I was going to say, but I am predisposed when I meet someone and I like them and I hear the music, maybe 1 out of 10 times I won't be into the music, and like I'm not good at lying about that, because also we can't, because like our face says everything. And I'll be like, dude, like it's cool. I don't get it, but it's cool, right? Yeah. Like I don't understand reggae, for example, but I know it's objectively very good, but I don't understand it at all. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot there. So, but yeah, definitely being released on Persephonic Sirens, it was probably the perfect home for that music, obviously. Yeah. It fits with the label. And what's behind the name? Why the SC Mark II? Oh yeah, SC Mark II. So for my music, generally speaking, I try to use very simplified words. Or I try to stick to things that give minimal connotation, because I don't want to like pollute the music. Yeah. You know, because like if I call a song, is like a completely ridiculously funny example, but like let's say I call a song like Defiler, or like I don't know, or like Bomb or something. Yeah. Like it implies a lot, right? Like certain words just have too much connotation. You know, so you want an empty vessel in a way, like it did. Yeah, I do. And SC Mark II, the reason it's called SC Mark II is because so when I write a demo, because I'm still very linear in a way, I'll write a demo and it'll just be like kick, maybe a pad for like some sort of harmony or chord movements, I use chord progressions. And then maybe I'll have like a bass and a lead. Like I'll maybe work with 4
at most 5 voices depending. And I'll create like, I don't know, a 16 bar loop, and that'll be like the main gestalt of the thing, whatever.
Yeah.
So my initial demo was SE, and then I created a new file and it was called SE Mark II. So that's really all it is.
Super simple.
That's the whole story.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So so that's why, because it was just the second version of the thing.
Yeah.
But it didn't change that much from the first version.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Very, yeah. Thank you for the story.
It's silly, but it's what it is. But yeah, I try to have really simple names for things because, yeah, I feel like it's so easy for my brain to get contaminated or polluted. Like if I sit down to write a song and I call it, I don't know, Plains of Fire or the Underworld or something. I don't know, I'm making things up. But like it changes everything. Like all of a sudden the whole thing goes through a different lens. Like now I'm making something different. So I'm so susceptible to like impressionistic things where some people lean into it, they make their music and they paint a picture with it. I'm trying to go somewhere I've never been before and I don't know what it looks like. So.
Yeah, in related to this, we were chatting just before pressing record, but about getting that's something also I read in an interview that you released a couple of years ago, which is you try to isolate yourself from outside influences, right? And then find your own way without having so much of conditioning that comes not from you. Tell me more about that. Like, why do you try to isolate yourself? How does that help you in your creative practice? What's the downside, if there is any?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. I've spoken to a lot of other musicians about this over the years. It's very interesting. Right. So you've got you've got some aspects there. Like you want to be a part of the dialogue. Because if you make music in a basement and never go outside and you don't know what's going on in the world, you're not in the dialogue. And there's a lot that happens, right? So like if you perform live, there's people in front of you and there's an energy and there's a dialogue, and it will inform how you perform next time because you've learned from it. Or you might be like, I'm not going to play that song next time because people didn't really connect with it. Or it might feed back into like, ooh, the next song I make, I realize now that like 16th note hi-hats are kind of boring and like people don't really move to it. You know what? 16th note hi-hats are not in the zeitgeist anymore. It's not in the dialogue. We're not saying that. So like you have all these things, you're like in the conversation, and if you're truly strictly purely isolationist, you're not in the dialogue at all. But if you've nourished yourself with enough music that you emotionally connect to, and you kind of have a feeling that there is something you want to say, and you have that feeling, maybe you're ready to just say it. Maybe you don't need to be too worried about what other people are thinking or listening to. And also, specifically with DJ-centric music or music that you want to be DJ'd and played out and be in that, you kind of do need to do some kind of benchmarking. An obvious example would be if your song has way too much or way too little low-end energy or way too much shrill highs, or like it's just way too quiet, someone will like put on the record, try to DJ it in their set and be like, ooh, I love this song, but it just doesn't fit with the other stuff.
Right, yeah.
Right? So like you do kind of need to reference and benchmark a little bit, but you can't overdo it, because if you go too close to match yourself to one other song or one other reference or one specific micro genre, you're never going to sound like that other person anyway. So now you're forcing it.
Yeah.
And then you end up being this like weird adjusted
version of
yourself. Diluted, and now you're kind of like losing a little bit of the thing that is you. So like, and like your song's not going to be as good as the song you're trying to copy. So like, why bother, right? So it's like, it's a tug and pull, because you don't want to be so arrogant and crazy where you're like, I don't listen to anything else. I only listen to my own music. But you also can't be like, oh, is my music good enough? I need to make sure my kick hits as hard as this other thing. And that, my snare is as snary as this other thing. Like, because you can get so over intellectualized comparing things and making sure your song is better than other songs, like that's usually a waste of time.
Yeah. And for someone who is, let's say, because I think it seems this is very intentional for you. Maybe it comes natural as well. But for someone who is in a situation where, they're creating their own music, they're kind of like everybody does, all of us probably do, is like you try to imitate a little bit to learn the ropes, to find your own way. And they find themselves in a way that they're creating tracks that are okay, but they're kind of finding themselves always trying to look at others and benchmark themselves. Like, what would you recommend for them to kind of break free from this influence?
Yeah, so great example that I'm sure, I feel like a lot of people into electronic music like Nine Inch Nails or Depeche Mode, but so this is probably not new to a lot of people. But for example, the first Nine Inch Nails songs ever written was, it was a quasi cover. I'm trying to remember. My brain's failing me right now because I got too many things filed under like 80s synth pop / industrial or something. But yeah, the first song Trent Reznor wrote, he changed the tempo of a. I'm trying to remember if it was Ministry or Skinny Puppy. I don't know. I think it was Ministry. Whatever. He changed the tempo of another act that he was listening to at the time, and he basically changed the tempo and then kind of just copied it. He was in a studio with some samplers and whatever, and he's like, "Oh, how do I make these sounds?" He made the song. It was really a copy of it, but the second you change the tempo and you sing different lyrics and you change the structure from like A B to like A B C B A or something, all of a sudden things feel very different. And no matter what he was going to do, he wasn't going to sound like Ministry or Skinny Puppy because he's not. So that's how he created his, I think it was Down in It. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Down in It. And he creates this song, but really it's like, if you listen, man, I really don't remember the song, but whatever. If you listen to the two songs, it's obvious he was copying it, but his song still has value and it's still good. So that's interesting. So I do think there are times where if you're ever a little bit lost or something, I think it's fine to do the academic exercise, if you will. Like, I'm a little lost, but I've been listening to this music for a while. I emotionally feel very connected with it. I want to learn to make music like this. When you're in music school, you do a lot of dictation. Where the teacher will sit at a piano, play the piece 2 times, and you have to write it out. And you have to learn how to do that. And that's, or if you go more into like improvisation, you have to learn to kind of like riff off each other and work within certain constraints and understand what everybody's playing. And like, you're basically copying each other until you get tired of copying each other. And then you look at each other, you nod, and then you create a variation and then you go somewhere. But like, so yeah, I think copying is okay, actually. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you understand you're never going to sound like them. And you shouldn't be upset when you don't sound like them. You should embrace that you sound different from them and then go down that path.
Yeah, makes sense. Also because sometimes it also helps you get unstuck or get new ideas in your original ideas by actually trying to absorb something and reinterpret it in a way.
I think that's perfectly valid. When I used to write rock music a long time ago, like maybe I would listen on repeat to like a David Bowie album or something.
Right, yeah.
Or random one that I like. That's like a bizarre guilty pleasure, but I've grown a certain affinity for the Swedes over the years. Is the Cardigans, Gran Turismo. There's certain like weird albums that I can very gladly listen to on repeat that I can't get that specific color anywhere else that I like.
So interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with copying or referencing or this or that, as long as you're open to like whatever the outcome is. And not being obsessed with, because a lot of times if you copy something and you put it right up to the light and you're like comparing it, you're going to be like, ooh, mine's not as good. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
But you have to like be okay to like go a little further down the path, maybe drown and die on the way. But like, you have to be willing to just push yourself a little bit beyond that. And then you might find something that's exciting.
Yeah. That becomes yours. Then you actually become.
And then it's exciting. It's super exciting all of a sudden.
Yeah. Related point to this is you're collaborating also with Blush Response, Mad Woman. You're creating music together.
Yeah.
what is something you've learned from the collaboration with them two or other artists?
Yeah, so something that I miss a lot from the boring old guitar music is when you're in a room with people playing music, you look at each other, you see when you're about to change. There's like, if one person is dragging behind, it creates tension. And then all of a sudden the thing shifts. Like all this really exciting stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And then you find new paths, you discover paths, you create together. It's like, it's very exciting, right? Usually when you're by yourself in front of like a MIDI sequencer or whatever, you don't have this like back and forth. And also there's another thing, when you're in a room with other people, it's like, it's showtime. We're creating now.
Right.
And you're not too precious about anything. You're not going to spend 20 hours like listening to snare samples because like you're not going to waste the other person's time. This is stupid. Like we're not doing that. You're like, pick that, go with this, go with that. It's very freeing in a way. So that, and also when you make music with others, you time block. It's like forced routine. It's like, hey, I can come over on Wednesday for, you know, from this time to this time. We got to make something, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why do we meet?
Yeah.
And so, for example, with Mad Woman, she's got her sounds she gravitates to. She's very interested because she's DJing a lot and playing like a lot of different types of venues right now. So she has like, she's looking for certain emotions and elements that she wants to be able to like, she's got the people in front of her and she wants to create her own nice little buttons that she can press for them to feel certain things. So she's like on a mission and she's thinking very clearly about like, it's going to be played in this kind of place. There's going to be these people in front of me and I want them to feel this way because I know they want that feeling and I want to be able to take them there because they're asking for it. So she's like very in touch with like both sides in and out of the DJ booth. And it's very interesting how she thinks. Like it's very purposeful. And like she has somewhere she wants to get.
Right. Yeah.
And then Joey or Blush Response, I see him like a brilliant jazz musician where he's got a big modular synth, which is his instrument. And then the first thing you do when you come over, he's like, oh yeah, I was messing around this morning, but let's start fresh. And then he just unplugs everything and everything is like literally from zero. And like the act of plugging things in and building up layers through that process, it's all improv. And then like, I don't know his modular, like he does obviously. So I'm like, oh, can you like get me like a tremolo or something? Like where can I get this? You know, but for him, it's all second nature. He's not even looking. He's talking to you. He's like, oh yeah, what about this? What do you think about it? And he's basically like, he's like cooking pasta for the 1,000th time right now. Like now he's like onto
his kitchen.
Yeah. He's in his kitchen,
really well.
man. Like he knows where everything is. And it's so, but for him, creating is like pure improvisation and he's using the computer as a tape recorder. You know, it's a tape recorder. And then the way that I create with him, it's so chaotic that I sit down and there's nothing to arrange. The only axiom at this point is subtraction. It's like, do I just mute this during this section? Do I just delete this layer? This wasn't that interesting. And like everything is already the way it sounds. It's also very exciting because you've got a track and you're like, is it good or not?
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll work on 6 or 7 tracks and then we'll decide, let's finish these 3 or 4. And then I'll take the session home and then I'll add maybe 1 or 2 more synths or something. And then we've got the track. It's like, it's very, but they're different. Like he's way more chaotic, but it works. And then Mad Woman is way more methodical and purposeful, and it works. So it's like, but they're 2 very different people. It's fun. It's fun.
And it seems both of them like inspire you for different things. Like
for sure,
because they contribute to your expansion of like what's possible, how people work. Yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, every time I make music with anybody, I learn so much that it's like it's crazy.
Yeah. Probably because we're also open-minded, very receiving.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah, I've never met a musician that like I spend a day with that I don't learn a bunch from, honestly.
Yeah, that's great. And talk about changing minds. What's a belief or an idea that you changed your mind on recently?
Ooh. I mean, recently. Ooh, I gotta think. Recently. Yeah, wow. There's a lot of stuff over the years. There's all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to think. Recent. How recent we thinking? I don't know. Like,
Can be 12 months in the last year or so, right? Not
Yeah.
super recent.
I mean, more as a broad or general thing, I think in creative context over the last year, whatever the context is, naturally, I mean, also maybe because I've worked so hard to only surround myself with people that I'm obsessed with their ideas. I'm just naturally drawn to people with really interesting ideas or like that I find interesting. But yeah, anytime people give me ideas, even if I don't like them at the outset or I don't understand them, I'm eager and excited to like go down that path and try it out. Because even if I don't like it, we can try something else after. So it doesn't even matter. So yeah, I think maybe it's just about my general way of working where I've opened up more into the idea that like everything is viable. You can try it. And if it doesn't work, you can iterate further. You know, like you can start a track.
Yeah.
You can you can smash some buttons on a drum machine, get a really weird pattern, you know, because we all know how to do the safe thing, right? Like the snare on the 2 and the 4 and like 4 on the floor kick drum, like we could do that. But like the idea that you might put yourself into a situation where you're trying the weird thing or you're with someone that wants to try the weird thing, you try the weird thing, you can always go back to the safe thing. You know how to do the basic thing. But like being open to like, oh yeah, let's lay this down. Let's record it. It's weird. It's kind of broken sounding, but let's see where it takes us. And then if anything, you swap out the weird thing for the safe thing. You can always go back to it. Yeah. But yeah, being open to trying things, not being too precious, not being like, you know, and it's my own.
Too strict, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my own thing because over the years, I used to be a lot more methodical. I've learned to become less methodical and a little more chaotic, and I'm learning that it's a little more interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, it adds a lot to the experience.
Yeah.
And going toward the wrap up, I'll ask you some questions. Feel free to answer as fast as you can without thinking. What's something, actually, if you were to choose one closing track for one of your set for the rest of your life, what would that be and why?
Ooh. Wow. Oh no. Let me think. One closing track? Oh man. That's fascinating just because yeah, I mean for the kind of music that I love to make and listen to today, I think I've done it several times now, so it's like bordering on cheesy and abusive. But for encore, for my sets, I've used many times SC Mark II. And it does touch a certain emotion and color that the reason I like the track, it's not because I made it, because it's actually not even about that. It's about like, it just has a color that I find that I don't find elsewhere. And that stimulates me. So like, I mean, if that can be my small addition. But yeah, it's hard. There's so many other tracks I can think of. It'd be so hard to pick though.
Yeah.
I had to fall back to one of my own songs, but like,
that's a great song to close as well. Like very emotional, very effective as well.
Yeah. It's hard for like an ending or an encore or anything towards that end of the night, depending what time of the night or morning or whatever it is. Like, there's certain colors you look for and certain emotions, and they can be very, very interesting. Yeah, closing tracks actually say a lot. I noticed from, weird one, but just to kind of underline just how important closing tracks can be. I noticed I spent time with Mad Woman on her recent tour in the United States, and I went to a few cities with her. She was really good with picking closing tracks. And it wasn't the same every night. Like, she really was picking the right track for the right moment for the right thing. And it's crazy because I never gave it, like, when I DJ, like, a lot of times I will kind of have the bookends where, like, I'll kind of know one of 2 or 3 tracks I'm going to use to start and 1, 2 or 3 tracks I might use to end. And then maybe I'll have, like, some tracks for rest in the middle if it's a longer set because, you know, like, for the ups and downs of energy. But, like, she's very creative and knows her music really well. And, like, she's pressing the buttons to make people feel certain things at certain moments. And she enjoys pressing the buttons. And, yeah, and again, very unexpected tracks because, like, I'll be like, what? Like, I never see it coming. And she's not afraid to play things that have lyrics or, like, are kind of weird. Like, she's not obsessed with techno being, like, pure or proper or anything. Like, she's playing the music that needs to be happening at that moment. So she's free in that way. It's
interesting and inspiring.
Yeah, her view's a little broader than mine and a little bit more universal. And honestly, it's inspiring because it makes me realize, like, you can broaden just a little bit and not lose anything, only gain. And it's very nice. Yeah. So like, yeah, they're picking the right closing track. That's like actually super hard.
Super important.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And you know, over the years, I remember a lot of closing tracks from a lot of sets I've seen that were emotional or important to me. That I remember, damn, the closing track is like, it could be very, very important. Yeah.
Oh, super important. And on that note, what's a guilty pleasure track of yours that you would never play in a set?
Yeah. It's funny. I like a lot of stuff. I like so much stuff that I would never play in a set. I'll tell you something weird that I have in my record box, which is like bizarre, that I like to go back. I like having weird things to go calibrate my ear to when I'm like organizing my music and DJing or whatever. I would never play it out, but I have some weird stuff in my record box. Like, for example, I have like acapellas from Madonna from the 90s. Like, you know, the William Orbit Madonna, like Frozen or other stuff. But yeah, I have acapellas of her because like sometimes I like to go back to like pure simple things that are like very naked to kind of like reset myself. And then also I love 80s industrial things. So like I have like a band that's maybe lesser known, but people who like that kind of music probably know. Like I like Machines of Loving Grace a lot, and they have some industrial tracks that it's funny that I'm always thinking like, man, how could I fit it in there? But then I'm like, it's kind of cheesy. It doesn't fit. So like I do have these like arguably guilty pleasure things that like I would love to fit in, but it's not going to happen. But I love listening to it anyway.
In a way that kind of they still inspire you, and they give you something. Yeah. And would you rather play in front of 10,000 people, huge stadium, but you don't connect with any of them, or 20 friends in a house party?
There's been a few nights where we've done like quote unquote house party type things with 20 people over the past like 5 years or whatever. And honestly, I remember those nights vividly, and they were really fun, and we still talk about them. So like when I really think about my own personal enjoyment, like my own selfish hedonistic musical desires of like, I want to play what I want to play and I want to enjoy with my people and whatever. Yeah, I guess it's great. It's like, if it's just you and the people you're closest to, you've got your own like private venue. This is amazing.
Freedom.
Yeah. And then you can play for a couple hours and someone else can play for a couple hours, and it's cool. And you can talk during all of that. That's exciting. And I've learned a lot from that. And that's when people aren't afraid to try weird stuff. And you share a lot of music and it's super exciting. When you play in front of a lot of people, there is a slight thing that, whether we like it or not, whether the pressure comes from a promoter or the venue or just the natural mass of the crowd, you start to lean a little bit into the whatever the greatest common denominator is. Like, how am I going to keep people moving? Like, how am I not going to upset the promoter? If you're playing in front of, even if you're playing just in front of 500 people, these pressures already exist.
For sure.
So like, I think it's probably more fun, more pure, more carefree, more amazing to play in front of 20 people.
Yeah, more space, and experimentation is also a very interesting point of that.
Yeah.
And Albert, what's something you are particularly excited about that is upcoming for you?
Yeah, for me, I'm very excited about playing in 2025, playing with people that I'm excited to play with, playing with a focus on Europe, just because this is kind of like where the most, to me, the most exciting things are going. And yeah, just getting to meet more people in more cities here. I have some roots in Europe, and I have some amazing friends here.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting to play for more people, because every time I play for a different group, I learn so much, and that back and forth, it's like, it's invaluable.
Yeah,
It gets me excited to go make more music. That's really what it's about, that feedback loop. You want to enter like a healthy feedback loop where you're excited to make something, to show it, whether it's to 20 people or 50,000 people or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's exciting. Like making music, sharing it, whether you're DJing or writing or even just actively listening. Like, I see some, like, it's happened to all of us, like, you're playing and there's always those like few people that are like the anchor. They're strong, they're dancing, they're really listening. It's so obvious, the dialogue. It makes you want to go home, discover more music, be in that, like, there's like some people that like, yeah, I want to live and experience more of that. So playing live, that's really my focus. 2025 is playing live and releasing a lot of the I've got 3 releases and something else that's exciting with music that are planned for next year already. So like, then just, doing the thing, playing live. That's really the focus though.
Amazing. Looking forward to hearing also the releases and the music.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, by the way.
Pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.
We have a closing tradition, which is we ask every guest to tell us like what question we should ask the next guest without knowing who they're going to be. What do you think we should ask?
Yes. I think you should ask them it depends, right? So if they eat steak, I think you should ask them how they eat their steak, what temperature. If they don't eat steak, I think you're going to have to ask them how they take their coffee and why they think that's the best way to take their coffee.
Okay.
Because I think that can create a lot of drama, and you should be very careful with those questions. I have a feeling you don't talk politics here, but
no.
Steak and coffee, if you want to,
steak is almost like level of politics. Like
that
raising my eyebrows.
Yeah, you got to be careful, but if you're feeling dangerous.
Okay, I'll do it.
Awesome.
And there's a question for you, which is, how do you think AI will change the way electronic music production is being made?
Ooh,
tough one.
How long do I have to answer? Because I'm gonna fill the paper depending on the size of the paper. Like,
short answer.
Short.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, broadly speaking, if you have given these some thoughts, like current AI as we know it or future of AI, how does it shape?
Of course I've thought about that. We've all thought about that. I've also followed. I've followed that space for a long time, for all kinds of reasons, not just because of creative pursuit, but also I love technology and like all these things. I mean, when we make technology, like it all fits in there. There's some futuristic aspect. The music technology informs how we make what and when and where. It's important. It is very relevant to music. For me, I think it's just a continued expansion of derivative iteration where, like, let's say, for example, you go to music school, you learn all the jazz standards, you're doing your machine learning, if you will. You have all these loops, you have all these little tightly templated bits and pieces. And then when you sit down to create You're like, hey, what key are we in? What scale? What this? You grab from these loops. If you're a drummer, you're playing rudiments and paradiddles. You have all these little patterns. You have like a tool kit you go into, you get the tool.
Yeah.
So like AI is like an expansion of this templating of these pre-made loops, of these tools. I see it just as a tool at the end of the day, because people are most interested in what other people are making. I don't think anyone expects to press a button, walk away, come back a year later and be like, ooh, give me 10 albums and everyone's going to love these 10 albums.
Yeah.
But as a tool where, for example, I'm thinking of a weird example, but let's say I want to explore samba rhythms, but I don't know a whole lot about samba rhythms, and life is short, but I really want to explore. If I have this theoretical tool that I can say, hey, give me 24 samba rhythms with kick, open hi-hat, closed hat, snare, side snare, or whatever, like rim shot. And it can give it to me in a format that's usable, because what did I used to do when I wanted to do some academic type exercise like that? I would have to go to the library, find like some weird 1972 thing that's like the samba rhythms of Brazil or something. And then I'd have to sit down in front of Cubase and click in notes looking at the sheet music. If the boring part can go away.
You
I
can
don't
probably
know.
test and experiment with the rest.
Yeah, like it might actually give us more time to do more creative stuff.
Yeah.
So like as a tool, I don't use AI in anything I do whatsoever. I'm not a Luddite, but like, I don't know. I'm not against technology, but I haven't found a way in my creativity to use AI yet. That's interesting to me, but I'm sure people will, and I'm sure there's people today using it in really interesting ways. So
we'll see.
as long as we stay open, we at least accept it can be a tool. Maybe, I don't know. I'm open-minded.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's it. Interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Albert, so good to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you, really.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Pleasure to have you.
Fantastic.